So, making Turbo Pit Fighter. We are making a comic book called Turbo Pit Fighter. This is post-apocalyptic sci-fi madness. We are 12 pages in, finished, and we are dozens more pages in, penciled, and we are maybe like a dozen or half or a dozen and a half pages inked. Um, but we're making a regular old comic and a bunch of other things. Here we have a podcast where we have like this how-to vibe, and we're showing live on the air, drawing and inking in split screen. We are still the only example of anyone doing this that we can find. um, and today we're also doing a special live format that Kurt is going to talk about in a second. And we're just two guys. I'm a school teacher, and Kurt is a lifelong artist. He's taught also. He has his fingers in a lot of different pies. But we're the duo responsible for Turbo Pit Fighter. We are also on our podcast series have two other um, topics that we cover. One is doing flip throughs of lovely comics that we call that comics that influence, and because those are the comics that influence us as we're on our journey making our comic. And the other series is Indie Creator Exchange, where we talk to interesting comic creators, writers, artists, publishers, reviewers, retailers, you name it, we do it. So we're we're in this endeavor, and we're just a couple of guys. So you're hanging out with Kurt and Jake now, and we try to go back and forth in a nice rhythm. So Kurt, why don't you tell all these fine feather folks what we're doing today differently?
We are live. We are live on YouTube and Instagram. My Instagram account, which is just Kurt Bruegel. And I've been doing this on my Crom the Barbarian YouTube channel, where I'm also showing off some of my other work and also promoting that I have released into the wild a 140 page black and white sword and sorcery magazine style, all about Crom the Barbarian. But I've been um, uh, playing around with technology. We use Riverside.fm as our streaming platform to record our podcasts, and then I download them as raw media and edit them. But what I've been finding on my Crom the Barbarian channel is I don't have to edit anything. So I can hold by myself a conversation and with people who are commenting. So if you have just jumped on, you can always send a little comment to us, questions, and we will be able to answer them. I'm moderating this whole thing in real time. And that was the other thing, Jake, when I'm editing, I'm always making notes on things that we need to stay connected to, and one of the things that ends up in my notes is Jake's constantly asking people to put something in the comments about something. So now Jake is going to be able to actually get somebody live to maybe answer those kinds of questions that Jake has, as well as I do. But live streaming seems to be a real a real thing.
Right. So here's how you can play along at home. If you're, if we're talking about something, and we're, since we're gentlemen of a certain age, we hit that little brain fog thing, and we're trying to say, oh yeah, what was Ringo Starr's wife's name? And we're like, and then in the comments you type Barbara Bach. We're like, oh, all right, that's it. So it saves us a Google. On the other hand, we'll be there. We do segments where we're talking about movies that we saw, sci-fi, inspiration. We're talking about magazines, popular culture, stuff in the news, technology. We have all these great arguments about technology and what's going to happen, predictions in the future. And then we also do our kind of planning, plotting, scripting segments. And so you could play along at home and say, hey, what would happen if you had Turbo, open the door and there's a bear, So you feel free, to put in your comments if you think you have a nice idea. We're probably not gonna. I mean, we may use it if you put us on the right direction. But what usually happens is you just make us see things from another angle, which
Yeah.
can get us unstuck. So we appreciate anybody that spends any time with us. So just to keep things moving here, I'm going to just let folks know our progress. So this is page 20 of issue 2. And as you might be able to see, I have it all worked out in blue line pencil now. And I'm just taking a regular mechanical pencil, going over it. I'm going to be doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 panels on this page, so action-packed page here. There's a nun being restrained. There is a teenager shooting with futuristic assault rifles here. There's going to be a hostage standoff, and there's going to be a kind of a thrilling moment here where somebody gets their hand blown off, and then we're going to carry the story forward. Kurt is working on, it looks like, multiple pages at the same time. So he's doing the Kasparov chess thing, I guess. But he is using a high-tech C pen to do his preliminary inks. And going in, laying down lots of kind of uniform values based on the pencils that are provided to him. And then he goes in later, of course, and does his toning, which we just spoke about last week. He uses a bunch of tools, everything from graphite sticks to airbrushes and spray cans, and he's huffing glue over there, whatever all he's doing. But he's in a sequence where Turbo is fighting the berserkers that are menacing the trophy girl, and then Turbo's flashing back to her youth when she got started in her kind of violent ways out of necessity when her family was being slaughtered by the RM soldiers. And of course, this all relates to our post-apocalyptic timeline where young Turbo is going to be around 10 years old at the time of the great depopulation of North America. And folks can find out all about this world building that we're doing on our Substack. Go to substack.com/doommags, and you can sign up for installments. And Kurt, why don't you tell us about the last installment that went out? I think we went over it was the beginning of the Company Man saga, right?
Well, we are, I think last week episode 121 went up. I do not believe we were talking about the Company Man. Actually, I can't check now.
The Company Man was the installment that went out on the Substack. I think.
On the Substack. Yeah. Yep.
Right. So we have our video podcast installments here on YouTube. And then we also have, for folks that want to do a little bit of reading, God forbid, there's Substack installments that we release on a weekly basis, just kind of like a bite-sized piece of story fiction, but it all relates to the Turbo world. We call that the end of the world timeline, and everything's going to go to pot as the multi-trillionaire De Huberton family consolidates all industries, takes over modern society. Folks, if you run a government, never let your biggest military contractor subsume the GDP of your entire nation.
Good idea.
That's kind of what we're predicting is going to happen. I think things are looking good to go that way as I follow the news every day. But Kurt,
Jake,
did you? Yeah.
So just with the Substack, when you alluded to, God forbid anybody reads, Substack has that built in, reads it for you. So you have that text to speech option, and also it'll also tell you how long the read is. So, it might say a 3-minute read. We're doing some small reads right now. And then we're going to be doing maybe some lengthier stuff. But, these are pretty quick pops. These are things that you're teasing the hell out of us when we are sitting down every Sunday making Turbo. But this is some just really great stuff. So, definitely if you have a Substack app on your phone, subscribe to doommags.substack.com and take a couple minutes, literally, and listen to what's going to be happening.
So it sounds like I have the URL backwards. You can't get there by going to substack.com/doommags. You have to go doommags.substack.com.
I think if you do either, they'll probably, technology is so
nowadays
beautiful.
You just put it in Google. Put in Doom Mags, DOOMMAGS, or you can spell it out, Doom Magazine, whatever. Yeah, so it's interesting, and you also don't need the Substack app, but because the installments could come to you by email. But I guess if you want to have all those high-tech features like the bot reading to you, now that is handy if you're drawing, if you're doing laundry, if you're exercising. I mean, there's a lot of other things that people do when their hands are occupied that we don't have to get into right now, but you could just have the voice of your choice read to you. I just use the standard AI voice, but yeah, I listen to articles all the time. I press the speech button. Think it's a great feature, and I'm good with that. Some people need to use their eyes to still read, but you could be doing other things. So multitask.
I need both.
Yeah.
For comprehension, I need both.
So Kurt, any cool updates since we last spoke last Sunday in Kurt world?
Well, other than this magnificent Crom collected 140 pages, black and white magazine size. It's out. It's been released. I spent the month of August running a campaign called Can Crom Sell 100 copies without Kickstarter. And I am proud to say 70 people voted yes to that. So
right.
I'm still selling copies. I've actually sold a couple already. Since the 1st of September, today's the 8th, but really amazing reception. One of the major reasons I put together the campaign and the Kickstarter thing is there's not a lot of people who are into this sub-genre, sword and sorcery, black and white, magazine size. Now, I'll have to say this. I'm going to have to go get a second job, I think, because, my comic book career starts with Savage Sword of Conan. I didn't work for them. I've always wanted to work for them. And I don't know if you know this, but Titan Books has been holds the Conan properties licensing, and they are redoing or doing their version now of Savage Sword of Conan, and it's going really well. Watched a lot of review. I have not purchased a copy yet.
What's the format?
It's magazine, black and white, full color cover. They had like a Boris cover, I think, or Magnolia cover. It's
so you're saying I could go to Barnes and Noble or my local book retailer and find this?
I don't know that yet. I don't know that yet, but I do know that I'm getting hopeful that black and white comic book magazines are going to be coming back and really penetrating the art form, which I absolutely am completely devoted to. Hence why I have started my own sword and sorcery comic, which is Crom the Barbarian. So. It's going to be interesting. Like I said, I got to financially be able to get myself in a position where you can
buy those things.
Well, the first issue you can't get right now for less than like $20. So that's also
new on the newsstand.
No, resale.
Oh, you're buying it.
So they're on episode. They're on the aftermarket. So they're already
Oh,
increasing in value. By I think they're $5 or $6, which is kind of like, all
I
right,
wonder
for a
if they're
black and
doing
white
I wonder if they're doing
64
a
page.
yeah, it sounds like I'm just guessing here. Maybe they're doing like just kind of exploratory limited print runs and selling out,
I hope
and then
so.
it
I
goes to the
hope so.
aftermarket,
I
right?
hope
I
so.
mean,
I
I'm gonna
really
go
do.
see. The only magazines I really look at nowadays when I go to my local Barnes and Noble. Sometimes my daughter is studying, and I'll meet her there, and I'll get a bunch of books. And last time I did that, I took some photos that I showed Kurt on the pod, and it was like, hey Kurt, check out these magazines that are back out. They're like just like eerie and
Oh
creepy,
yeah,
but they're
yeah.
these new companies, and we went over those in an episode. Um, and the only other magazines I really check out are like Juxtapose and like High Fructose. I think High Fructose went under. I haven't seen them for a while. And then you see all these art magazines. I like the street art and the outsider art, and the anything to do with comics. I don't think there are any great comic magazines out nowadays.
I agree.
But that's interesting that they're doing that, because it sounds like they're kind of reviving a format that hasn't been around for decades, right? And if that's successful, there's no reason why they shouldn't be putting out Savage Hands of Kung Fu, um, you know, uh, the Planet of the Apes. I mean, even Howard the Duck, I think, did like 6 or 10.
Jake.
Yeah. Are you there?
So yeah. The hope I'm having is that, and we've talked about this with the last two interviews, which was Chris Anderson and Matt King, and the funky suspicion and hope is that if they're selling them on magazines, and like you said, they're just doing, I don't know, 10, 20,000 or something of them just to move them out and create a value inside the secondary market, which is at the core of the speculative market within comic books. You also have an opportunity to grab new comic book readers. I really hope this is what happens, because now you have a place where you don't have to deal with the crap from coming out of the big 3, 4, whatever it is. Definitely Marvel and DC. But the art I'm seeing in there, the stories I'm hearing review wise aren't really that magical in the both the Savage Sword of Conan, and I think it's Shudder and Eerie Tales or something like that. This is the other ones. They're not.
Right. Shutter
They're
is the
not.
one I found. Right.
Yeah. They're not really due, but they are paying homage to this, where they were able to get away. They got away from the comics code by going magazine. So you could show boobies and blood. I mean, you would never see that. Well, maybe you would have seen that in Conan the Barbarian, maybe, but this is where comic books for me start. I start buying this at like 12, 13 years old.
Right. I mean, and I think that one has I mean, what Kurt is holding in his hand right now, this is worth like $50 in good condition. I mean, you can't even get these for like 25 at your local comic store that I've been finding.
Far from
And
good condition.
the combination of like John Buscema and Ernie Chua, right, or Rudy Nebres. So this is where they were really piling on the Filipino artists, and they were doing black and white. So it's like Marvel. Imagine Marvel in black and white, slightly larger format, and unleashing the writers a little bit, so that you don't have to worry about the comics code. I think Marv Wolfman was the editor in those days, if I remember right. Because I'm always trying to read up on the Marvel history, but even then, Conan. I mean, it's just rehashing, right? So Conan started as paperback, finally got into the comics around
Pulps.
60. Yeah, well, it was paperbacks to
Coinances,
pulps, right?
pulps, then paperbacks.
Invented the genre of like, barbarians wearing loincloths and swinging swords. And then around 69, 70, Marvel Comics gave it to Barry Windsor Smith, a very young Barry Windsor Smith. And it just, it went from there. Now it's I don't know if it's $1 billion franchise, but it's $100 million franchise. Conan with movies and Schwarzenegger, and it's been put out by every company. You have copycats, imitators. Every time I go into YouTube, they try to send me the top 10 Conan imitation barbarian movies, B movies that you've never seen. And I watched it once, and it was so funny. But um,
Jake.
you know, yeah, but what?
So we've got Dexter Jones is live here with us on Instagram. Dexter is a Crom the Barbarian supporter, as well as writer and sketch artist too. So
Oh, okay.
he's putting something together for the Crom anthology. But welcome, Dexter, to Turbo Pit Fighter. I'm here with Jake Jacobs. He's the writer and the penciler. So you are our first live guest. So thank you for jumping on and chatting, throwing
Right,
something in the chat.
we have had dead guests before, but they don't count. Um, yeah. So Kurt, that was I wanted to ask you. So your week was finishing up your month of Crom,
Yep.
and I'm not sure if you've had any other time, to devote. But what I was doing this week was I was doing a lot of sketching, and last night I took up that Dave Stevens documentary that you told me about.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and man, that got me at the end. They had this
Yes,
really
it
like
does.
they really
Yes,
really
it does.
tearful kind of like ending.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
you know, my takeaway. So you saw the whole thing, right?
Yes.
So yeah, my takeaway was that here's a guy, Dave Stevens, West Coast guy. He was always very slow. He was always very meticulous. He wasn't a cranker. And he is ranked among, the best out there. I didn't know that he had like a super team studio set up with William Stout and I forget who else. Um, but they say like the knock on him, if there was one, was that it took him a long time to produce stuff, and that limited his options. Sometimes he had deadlines where he needed some of these other like really high level pros to come step in and help him out, help him finish things up, and just kind of like finish it by community. But also, I didn't realize how dependent he was on photo references. And
Oh, yeah,
they
come
talk about
on.
the models that he used to use, and like
Strippers.
well, yeah, he used to go to strip clubs, and he used to get these models, and he married this like fine young woman that was at
Brink Stevens.
Brink Stevens, right? She was, well, I think that was just her professional name, but she was doing the convention circuit. Dave Stevens happened to be in San Diego, so he was just there, right place, right time, and they had a marriage for a while. They go into like he was this ladies' man that used to really love courting the women, and the women were jumping after him. But they showed all of his art, and it really took you down memory lane. It was a great documentary. I thought it didn't try to do too much. It wasn't too long, and and they pretty much went over everything he did while he was alive. So that it just makes you kind of sad that he didn't do more. He didn't live longer and do more. But yeah, that was pretty interesting. And it also goes through how he was one of the first, if not the first, comic artist to have his work adapted into a motion picture, full feature motion picture, The Rocketeer. So very interesting, and I recommend watching it. I think it's called Drawn. into what was it? Drawn into passion or something? Drawn into something. It was like some kind of pun with drawn. But just Google Dave Stevens on YouTube, and it'll probably be the first thing that pops up. Documentary. So another good recommendation from Kurt for comic aficionados. I never really, we haven't really done Dave Stevens in our comics that influence. Although I have, I think pretty much all of his Pacific comics. I have the Aurora, and I have the the covers that he did. Alien, what is it? Alien Invasion
World.
or Alien World, right? I have the 3D one too. Some of these are just reprints of other ones, because his work was very limited. Like when he would sit down and do sequential pages, it was a really big deal in his life to do that. And so he had a very kind of robust career just doing covers, and he did
Yeah.
covers for the bigs, and he did covers for all of his friends, and a lot of well-known characters. And who knew that this was a shock to me? Who knew he was the storyboard artist for Steven Spielberg and George
Yeah.
Lucas?
I was just going to bring that
Give
up.
me a
That's where
break.
his
He
that's where
he
his
did
cash was coming in.
he was making a lot of money doing
Oh
storyboards
yeah.
for Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first
Yeah.
one. He did,
Yeah.
and then he did storyboards for Thriller with Michael Jackson, sitting down with Michael Jackson. Unbelievable career this guy
Yeah.
has, and it just goes to show you that like comics is probably the least of the work that he did as far as like pay and financial remuneration, but
So
really interesting stuff.
I actually last night sat down and watched a little thing on how Steven Spielberg saved his career by um, hiring storyboard artists, because he did Jaws, and then his follow up was the Encounter one.
Close Encounters.
Close Encounters, and he went. Both of those movies went over more than half, but he might have had like $50,000 to $75,000 budgets, $1 million budgets, but he went 150, $175 $1 million budget. So
Yeah.
he had a really, really, really crappy reputation. So his buddy George Lucas, who by the way was good friends with Dave Stevens, said, you need to hire a storyboard artist. And the whole thing, they don't say anything about Dave Stevens. Some of the things they show, you're like, I wonder if that's him, or Ron Cobb, who was the big guy for like Alien and Conan. He was another big player, but there was a lot of people that were really
yeah,
they're storyboarders. But as Spielberg said, if I'm riding a motorcycle now, I need a sidecar, and the person in that sidecar is the storyboard artist. It's not my AD. It's not my, he's going on about like it saved my life. And then when he did, can't remember Raiders of the Lost Ark, he came in $7 million under budget and a week ahead of schedule. And that was also because he was playing around with Lucas's money. So
yeah. Well, Steven Spielberg also bailed out Dave Stevens and the producer that Dave Stevens had, where they had all these treatments for the Rocketeer. They had like 4 drafts. It was pretty well developed, and they were shopping for a studio. They kept getting turned down by the bigs because they were not an established franchise. It was a brand new character coming out of nowhere, and they were courting Disney to make the film, who eventually made the film, but they were all kind of like they were. They weren't going to pick it up until Steven Spielberg said, "Look, if nobody else picks it up, I'll pick it up. I'll do the film." And once Disney heard that, because Steven Spielberg was a very, very known quantity on the map by that point, that's when they said, "All right, let's take it, let's do it, and make it." So that's we don't lose this project to Spielberg, and so they made the movie. And you know, it's a good movie. Like Rocketeer, it's it's not my thing. It was kind of like a throwback to the 30s and to the days of like you know old cars and Tommy guns, and there it was just about like a jetpack. So it wasn't too sci-fi for it wasn't sci-fi enough for me, but it was a labor of love. It was highly personal to Dave Stevens. It talked about it was kind of like a metaphor for his relationship with Brink Stevens, and a lot of other stuff going on. The characters were based on, but just nice to see somebody in comics, which are the bastard stepchild of art forms, um, make it into
And
something
I'm
that
glad to
actually
be here.
and something that actually makes money, right? Well, look at Conan, right? That's another one. Um,
Every
it
day I do.
right, it's a household name now because of that. When you and I were kids, it was not. It wasn't till it wasn't till I mean, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie and the craze. So always interesting to see what comics are made into movies, because it's happening all the time. And we do hear some stories about comics that get optioned. It's good to be successful comic, but it's not necessary at all. A lot of comics that got made into movies are very lesser known comics, um, like The Mask and like
Yeah, I was
Walking
thinking the same
Dead
thing.
and
Yeah.
Men in Black, and The Crow. These are really like you know deep indie, deep cuts, in the indie comic world. And the list goes on and on. Like, I'm sure there's an exhaustive list somewhere, and people probably don't realize. But talking about storyboards, well, there you go, right? It's like the whole movie is already storyboarded when you start with a comic. And it's just a matter of how much does the studio want to change it, because they want to like suit a an investor or a director or or a star, that making demands, with the red M&Ms and everything. So yeah, it's great, and we've spoken to a couple of people that we've interviewed already here that have done storyboards throughout their career. Am I remembering that Robin was doing storyboards at one point? Robin
That's a
Aitken?
good question.
I
Good
think he said he
question.
was, like,
Wouldn't
a lot of people.
surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too different from sequential art, except the boxes are all the same size, right?
Yeah, it's like a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that you've got to, but it's got a whole bunch of other information that tells
Yeah,
cameramen to, what to do, what not, all that stuff. It's pretty cool. It's
yeah.
pretty
I
cool
mean,
stuff.
it would be a great class to take for comic artists. The differences between comics and storyboarding, because it's like captions instead of word balloons. It has arrows and like directions of like pans and zooms and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
I don't think there's a lot of room for creativity though. I think that's what I've heard is the thing that really frustrates
right,
the artist is
you're
because
just the
you're a
stenographer.
tool.
Yeah, you're the stenographer.
Yeah. You're not
I once
somebody that
saw.
like, oh, Jake, we really need you to give us the visual vision of this next movie. Oh, I got you guys. Don't worry about it. I got you.
I once saw a Help Wanted ad, and I was looking at some board, some jobs board, and it was like Disney had a bunch of different things. There were they different positions that they were hiring, and one of them was wanted storyboard artists to come and draw live daily in person, Burbank Studios, um, with the producers of the Marvel universe, and it pays $100,000. Must be experienced, fast, versatile, blah blah blah. And I'm like, what a dream job for somebody, and I wonder who got the job, but I'm sure it's somebody with comic chops and an interest in you know action and adventure and everything, but you you got to just imagine the stories that come out of that, because Hollywood is such a frustrating place, for creatives to go and watch your creativity get turned into something else right before your eyes, and the greatest example of that was like this kind of like satire bit that I once saw, and it was like, hey, I've got this great, property, and it's called like, Johnny Adventure and the, Knights of the Round Table, whatever. And then, they give it to the studio. He goes, we love it, but we want it to to be a dog.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And
I've heard the
that's the
same thing.
famous story. So
Yep,
like, go rework it and everything. It's like, and the
yep.
guy's like, what?
Because dogs are hot right now.
Right. Dogs are hot. We want a dog, and
Everybody wants a dog in the
Meryl
movie.
we want Meryl Streep to play the role, the lead,
The
the
dog.
female.
The dog.
So and that's true. That's really what happens. They say when you're a writer, you're lucky if 70% ends up on the final page. That's what Denny O'Neil said. That was just a number he threw out, but it could even be less. And then and sometimes you're not even the one rewriting it. Sometimes it's just changed after it leaves your hands. So there's all these funny stories, but that's why we love indie comics. And funny about Dave Stevens, a guy, he had a portfolio review with Neil Adams in his very, very early days. And the first thing Neil Adams said is, well, you could go ink for Marvel right now.
Yeah.
And he never did, right? Or maybe very limited. He wanted creative control, wanted to work on his own characters. He wanted to do what inspired him, which is like, pin-up art and throwback art and, B movie stuff, and pulps, and that's what we choose to do too. Now for me, it isn't like I turned down any any work from Marvel. I've never really even auditioned, but it is nice to do whatever it is you want, without having anybody. It's a huge compromise, and it's one of the realities of getting into the business for real, is that there's incredible deadlines, there's incredible pressure to change your ideas, to conform. You have a writer that you might be working with. You have an editor on top of that. Then you have a publisher, and then you have the might have limitations of the tools you can use, because it has to be kind of like a house style, a print format. They said Dave Stevens once was being a little prima donna, and he made the publisher reprint an entire edition of something because he didn't like the paper. And he was really complaining about newsprint and how your artwork gets reduced to a smaller size and then gets printed on newsprint,
It bleeds
where
out.
yeah, I mean, if you zoom in, like if you look at it with a magnifying glass or a microscope, it's literally just like splattering all over the page, you know, uh, and so it doesn't really hold your precise line work like you might hope. It's just a version of it.
Jake,
But yeah, what's up?
we've got a little bit of a statement from Dexter who says artists complete the link between writers, actors, and directors. I think artists are the glue that hold things together. Cave paint was life class. So definitely agreeing there.
Yeah. When you're especially a movie with visuals, like if you're doing a courtroom drama, nobody really cares, right? You're just going to show the guy, show a head, show the judge. I mean, maybe the most dramatic thing you have is like a close up of the gavel, like order in the court. But when you're doing visuals, like think of all the great properties, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Jaws. Then you get into sci-fi, alien worlds, um, and now and then you've got like this whole new thing now, since the dawn of computer graphics, And you used to be limited, like, wow, we can't afford that on our budget. Remember that famous story that Stan Lee sold the rights to Daredevil and Black Widow to David Bowie's wife, Angie Bowie, on a cocktail napkin, and because she wanted to star as the Black Widow, and she wanted to wear the skin tight black outfit and everything, and she wanted a feature length movie, and she felt like she had the contacts to get it made. They went and they did some photo shoots and everything, but nothing ever got green lit because this was like 1971 or something like that. And they were like, or maybe it was even like 69 or 77. And they were like, no, we can't do any Daredevil special effects where he's swinging from billy clubs and jumping around. It's just, it would look horrible. And so, it took until the age of CGI where Scarlett Johansson actually suited up, and and now you're seeing all those stunts, and you're seeing all those, you know, flyer jets, and pulse rifles, and aliens, cyborgs coming out of the spaceship, all this stuff. I mean, it's amazing what CGI is doing now. I have a problem, that's, it's becoming so disposable, because, like, it used to be like, wow, you go to watch an Avengers movie and you see this like huge robotic alien coming out, and like, wow, you're seeing that. But then, like, you're watching TV and you see the same technology on a Claritin commercial, right? It's like, do you have hay fever? It can feel like this. And then you say, rah, this big monster. And it's like, all right, I guess anybody can do it if the ad agency can do it. But that's it.
So, Jake,
Learn Maya. What?
we're at the 42 minute. You said you had a couple of notes that you wanted to share with us on Turbo's World, and of course, this would then get onto the Substack. So we're probably going to go over 45 minutes, which is all right. We're on live, but we do have an interview with Alan Robinson at 11:30. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes. How about that?
All right. Well, just sketching around. So sometimes when you're sitting around sketching, you're watching stuff, you're listening to stuff, you're getting inspired. So here's a sketch I made. This is going to be the old people. Folks, this is really going to happen. But as old people who are rich get older and older, and their organs start failing, they're going to be able to clone their organs and harvest tissue, and they're going to have doctors and lab technicians that are going to be able to keep them going. So in our story, it's going to be called The Sentience, and they're going to be they're not going to be like 500 years old. They're going to be like 120, 130, 140, maybe up to 200 years old. And they're basically just going to be like, some will just be a brain in a jar. Some will be like, kept alive, or their lungs are pumping, their brain is active and everything. But so I just drew this close up face, and this is going to be like this man in the iron mask type of thing that swings open. This is still in progress, but I want to show like some ugly cuss that's going to be one of the sentients. So I'll send you that sketch. I don't know if I'll ever finish it. So this is the part. This is one of the. There's a lot here. We might need more than 10 minutes, so maybe I'll save this. But I have this page and this page, and this is going to be the format that we've been getting into, where we're going to have like a 6-page action sequence that's going to be written up into a script, and hopefully that script will go to the hands of an artist that that will collab with us, or maybe I'll hire them if I actually plunk down some of this art fund money that I've been saving up. I have about $1,000 saved up if I find the right artist so far, from all of my eBay stuff. But we did a 6-page treatment already, a full script rather. and of the company, man. And so this will be one of the next ones. This is going to be something that I'm developing. And I said, you know what I said? I said, one of my favorite characters is Master of Kung Fu, Shang-Chi, especially the run with Paul Galassi and Bill, who was it? Bill Mantler? No, Doug Mensch and Paul Galassi. Like, such a great run. Um, and I say, like, there was a female character, and there was a couple of female characters in that comic series, but there was never a lead character that was a female kung fu artist. So we're gonna have one in our end of the world timeline, and there's going to be a couple things to her. She's going to be a follower, a devotee of Esoterra, who is going to be in the early stages of our timeline when like society still hasn't broken down so much. And she is going to develop some kind of special abilities, to make shadow projections and to create bright lights emanating from her eyes. And I write here like parlor tricks because they're not really like powers where you can like levitate or move objects around or heat things up or whatever. There's going to be other characters that are able to do that, like Esoterra and Hellclaw. But she's going to be a kind of a side character, and I developed kind of like what she looks like here. I didn't really finish the face. She's also going to develop the this kind of like eyewear that is later going to inspire Esoterra's daughter, Elevena. But there's a lot of notes to this here, and I'm going to have her um, coming to popular attention in a sequence where here there's going to be this kind of like bad guy, and I'm only teasing this because we're not really into the transcription thing. We have to be a little bit more. We have to have a little more time for that. But just to give you like a teasing kind of overview, there's going to be this group. This might be like 50 to 70 years from now, or maybe 80 years from now. So like figure like the getting towards the 2100s. There's going to be this organization of all white male, people, and they're going to, go by a couple different names: the pre-Confederates, the alt cons or the alt boys, neo nationalists. And what they're going to do is they're going to go around, and this is really going to happen in real life. So, I hate to break it to everybody, but they're going to use social media to do ambushes, and they're going to ambush everyday people who don't agree with their ideology. So you're going to have the same political divisions that we have now, except people are going to use technology to go around and just ambush people and kind of harass them. You're not assaulting them. What you're doing is you're capturing them on video and you're putting them online and you're doxing them, even though they're just going about their daily business. And so that's going to cause, and that's going to be like part of the downfall of social media, which I think we've already started. But there's still some nice things on social media too, like cat videos. But so in the story, this is going to be kind of like the bastardization of social media, and this really, like, because it's going to be like this totalitarian vibe where everything is just political and everything is just like, you're either defending the dehuberton company or you're not. You're either with us or against us, and if you're not, that's going to be kind of awkward for the other side, which I call the resistance, but that's going to include the US government and all the cults. And so it's not really a cohesive, other side. It's just going to be like the one side and then all the other sides. So I have a lot of really, really rich kind of like subtopics that are coming in. But basically, the 6-page um, kind of like zooming in sequence, that I'm going to write into a full script is going to be this female character who does kung fu, and she knows a couple of let's say superpower tricks or enhancement tricks. They're not really that powerful, but she's going to get um, kind of like assailed by the alt boys and put online, and she's going to become, unwittingly a public figure, and she's going to fight back. And then she's also, and so they're going to, she's able to videotape things too. And so they're going to, go back and forth, and it's going to be this kind of like pitched battle between him and his crew and her, and she'll basically be solo, but she might have a couple of nerdy friends. And I don't know, I'm just calling her Kung Fu Girl for now, but she's going to have a lot of things to her, like the eye flashing thing, and then the shadow ability. And because she follows Esoterra's science slash mysticism, she will be able to use Esoterra's formula and develop some actual powers, and I'll get into those later. But and which she'll defeat the guy in the 6-pager. Of course, the 6-pager could expand to a 10-pager, 12-pager, whole comic. I mean, anything is possible. But you want to start out with just like kind of like a proving ground sequence, and or a teaser, let's say. So I have all these notes, which we'll do, maybe in our next week episode or an upcoming episode, where I'm going to discuss it with Kurt, and we're going to hit the transcribe button, and then we're going to turn that into an installment on our Substack, and we're going to use the AI ability of the voice to text. What else do I have to show you since last week? This you saw already. This is going to be a close up of the unbeknownst one, who is going to be the bad guy in the Turbo saga that Turbo is going to stand off with. Um, these are some sketches I don't think I showed you yet. I'm still working up. I have some other faces I've been drawing. This sketch right here is just a work in progress. I don't know if you want me to show you stuff that's this rough, but here's a strong female that is shooting a guy point blank. I have some graphite stick that I was using here, and some blue line pencil, which I'll go over with the graphite stick next. And I had a couple of tighter drawings that I was working on, I think last week too, when we were doing our interview, that I'm flipping to here. Let's see if I can get the right. Okay, so here, just a kind of a strong female. She's going to have the Elevena, one of these little wands, um, which is going to be able to warp reality. You see, I don't know if you can see this, but you see this guy, and his face looks like it's in photo booth and kind of like the swirl filter. Well, this tool is going to be able to do that in real life. And so this will be an altering reality weapon, and you could take this guy's face and drag it to make him look like the twirl effect in photo booth. You know what I'm talking about there?
Yeah.
Right, except it's gonna leave him like that. And this is because the nanoparticle technology in the stick, this little wand that Esoterra and Elevena invent, is going to be very, very powerful, and they're not going to want this to fall into the hands of the Dehubritans or the technology. So this is going to have to be one of the super squadron women that you know Elevena enhances. Nobody else would be trustworthy enough. Here is a drawing that I was making when we were doing our last week's interview, and I feel like I've been neglecting the bullet point where we're talking about the giantesses. So I sketched out a kind of like an encounter here between an enhanced female and a giantess, and
Nice.
she's not the biggest giantess in the world, but there's going to be what we call eights and nines, and I don't know if we're going to have tens, because at some point, you know how like Giant Man, or what's his name, Goliath, or
Yeah.
Ant Man, Giant Man, whatever. You know how you get so big and it's like the physics are no longer like really viable for human physiology. Like your blood has to pump, your brain has to circulate, like and it seems like I mean, what's the biggest living organism on the world? It's like a whale, a blue whale or something, or a
Yes, yeah,
sperm.
blue whale. Yeah.
And then in the prehistoric days, so I guess this is something I got to research. In what was the biggest living organism in the prehistoric days? I mean, I guess trees are the biggest right thing, but they don't move around too much. They don't move around very much. So um, I am looking into the physics of it to see how big we can make the giantesses. But once they determine, hey, we can alter, the ability of kids to grow. I don't know if this is going to be like done in the womb or genetically before conception or or while they're growing. I would imagine that they will be applying the science, during all throughout the conception and the development of the zygote into a fetus, into an infant, because that's when you have your stem cells, right, in real life.
Right.
So,
So
um,
Jake, we've
yeah.
got to wrap it up because we've got to get ready for an amazing interview with. All right, I'm taking this. Actually, hang on, this Alan Robinson, and then just for the
Oh,
new
right.
people
Okay.
that just got in, or just found us because we went live in the algorithm on YouTube specifically. Go ahead and hit the subscribe. So you get more of this from us. I won't be here next Sunday, so there'll be a recorded. I think it's episode 122, but we do have a teaser that you can purchase. Everything that we've been going on about, first 12 pages of the Turbo Saga is there, and as well as a nice, sweet little introduction to the Doom Mag Substack and a direct link to get there. These are all available through kurtbrugel.com. And but other than that, lastly, on cromthebarbarian.com, 140 pages, black and white, magazine size, sword and sorcery comic anthology is out in the wild and is ready for you to own. And also collaborate, contribute. So on Instagram, we had Dexter Jones. He's working on the God Crom, which is a big thing that I'm pushing towards, is how to take this little guy from the jungle, this little like blonde haired Tarzan boy, and turn him into the mythological god that Crom swears to. But other than that, Jake, we can let these people get back to reading comics, making them if they choose. And we're going to do this again because I think this went really well. Yeah, that's all I got. What do you got on the way out?
No, just like Kurt says, for collab, if you want to collab on Crom, which is a sword and sorcery public domain property, or if you want to collab on our sci-fi world, End of the World Timeline has a lot of info about it on our Substack. Turbo Pit Fighter, obviously, we're centering on the Turbo character and that era. But if you are a penciler, inker, writer, patron, co-writer, feel free to get involved. We're completely open to other people. There's so much capacity for other people to create too and be part of this. Basically, what I'm offering is free writing for any artist that might want to get involved, and you can pick up a subplot and make your own characters or use our characters, whatever. But we are looking to collab with others, like-minded indie comic creators, and drop us a line if that's you. So check out our other channels, and we will see you next Sunday.
All right. We'll see you.